My name is Sarah Coleman, and I need to share something with you that completely changed my life. Honestly, I've been struggling to find the right words to tell this story, but it's too important to keep to myself. On April 3rd, 2023, I had an experience that took me beyond anything I thought was possible. For 12 minutes, I was clinically dead. No heartbeat, no breath. But in those 12 minutes, I didn't just drift into nothingness. I went somewhere so real, so profound, that I'm still trying to process it. And what I experienced wasn't just for me. It was a message meant for all of us. Let me give you a little bit of context first. I've been an emergency room nurse for over a decade. My life has always revolved around science, facts, and the tangible. I've seen the worst and best of humanity, moments of despair, and moments of incredible resilience. If you'd told me even a year ago that I'd be sitting here, sharing a story about dying and coming back with a message from Jesus himself, I would have thought you were crazy. But life has a way of turning everything you believe upside down. That morning started like any other. I'd had a restless night after my son's soccer game. You know how your mind races with all the little things you need to do. I got up early and decided to take a jog to clear my head. The streets in my neighborhood were quiet, still wrapped in that pre-dawn calm. There was a light fog, and the air felt crisp, almost refreshing. I remember looking at my watch. 5:12 a.m. Everything seemed so ordinary. Then it happened. I don't remember the impact itself, but later I learned that a distracted driver, someone looking at their phone, hit me as I was crossing the street. 1 second, I was there, alive and well. The next, everything went dark. At least, that's what I expected. Darkness, silence, an end. But instead, I found myself in the most extraordinary place. The first thing I noticed was the light. It wasn't like sunlight or any artificial light we know. It was pure, warm, and alive. It wrapped around me, not just illuminating my surroundings, but filling me with an indescribable sense of peace. And when I say peace, I mean a complete and total absence of fear, pain, or worry. Everything that had ever weighed me down just vanished. It felt like I was finally home. As I stood there, trying to make sense of it all, I noticed colors. Vivid, radiant colors that I'd never seen before. The air itself seemed to hum with energy, with music that wasn't coming from any one direction, but from everywhere at once. It wasn't like any music I'd ever heard. It was as if joy and love had been turned into sound. Then I saw someone stepping toward me. It was my father. He passed away when I was a teenager, but there he was, looking vibrant and healthy, like he was in the prime of his life. I recognized him instantly. His smile was the same, but there was something heavenly about him, a glow, a purity I can't explain. "Sarah," he said, his voice filled with love and warmth. "You don't need to be afraid. He's waiting for you." Before I could ask what he meant, he reached out and touched my hand. In that instant, I felt this deep connection, as if every question I'd ever wanted to ask him was answered without a single word. It was all so overwhelming, and yet so comforting at the same time. "There's something you need to see," he said, and suddenly the light around me grew brighter, more focused, and there he was, Jesus. I'm not exaggerating when I say that trying to describe him feels impossible. He wasn't like any image or depiction I'd ever seen. His presence was both human and divine, radiating a love and power that I've never felt before. His eyes, they held everything, compassion, wisdom, and a depth that seemed to see straight through me, not just who I am, but who I've been and who I'm meant to be. I fell to my knees, not because I was afraid, but because being in his presence was so humbling. He reached out and placed his hand on my shoulder. "Sarah," he said, his voice gentle yet commanding. "There is something you must see, something my people need to know before I return." And then he showed me 4 events, each one more incredible and sobering than the last. The first event he called the Great Distraction. I saw people all over the world glued to their devices, phones, screens, technology, completely absorbed in things that didn't matter. Families were sitting together but not talking. Friends were more concerned with their social media likes than with each other. Even believers were caught up in the noise, losing sight of what truly mattered. Jesus turned to me and said, "This is how the enemy works. He keeps them distracted, focused on the temporary, so they forget the eternal. Tell my people to wake up, to refocus their hearts and minds on me." The second event was the Great Deception. I saw a world mesmerized by signs and wonders. Beautiful lights appeared in the sky, and beings of incredible beauty and charisma began to speak to humanity. They spoke of peace, unity, and enlightenment, but their words were laced with lies. Even strong believers were being drawn in, seduced by their promises. "These are not of me," Jesus said. "They will mix truth with lies, leading many astray. Tell my people to stay rooted in my word, for it is the only foundation that cannot be shaken." The third event was the Great Awakening. This one filled me with hope. I saw waves of light spreading across the world as people turned back to God. Families were praying together. Communities were coming alive with worship and repentance. Miracles were happening everywhere. Healings, deliverances, lives transformed in an instant. But with this awakening came persecution. Believers were mocked, attacked, and even killed for their faith. Yet their joy was unshakable. "My Spirit will move powerfully in these days," Jesus said, "but the cost of following me will be great. Tell them to stand firm, for the reward is eternal." The fourth and final event was the Great Return. The sky split open, and there he was, coming in glory with legions of angels. The whole world stopped, every knee bowed, and every tongue confessed that Jesus is Lord. Some did so in awe and worship, others did so in terror. It was the most beautiful and powerful thing I've ever seen. "This is what awaits," Jesus said. "Tell them I am coming soon. Tell them to be ready, for no one knows the day or the hour." As the vision began to fade, I found myself still kneeling before Jesus, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what I had witnessed. Yet his gaze never wavered. It was as if the entire universe could wait while he spoke directly to me, his words embedding themselves in my heart. "Sarah," he said, "the world is entering a time unlike any it has known. You've seen what is to come, but remember this: I am always with you, and I am always with my people. My love is unchanging, and my promises are unbreakable. Even in the midst of trials and chaos, those who trust in me will find peace beyond understanding." He paused, and the light around him seemed to grow even warmer, as if his presence alone was enough to banish every fear. "There will be days of doubt, even for you, but know this: I chose you for this message, not because you are perfect, but because you are willing. Trust in my strength, not your own. And remember, the message is not yours to carry alone. My Spirit will guide you and give you the words when the time comes." Before I could respond, he placed his hand over my heart, and I felt a rush of love so profound that it brought tears to my eyes. "Tell my people that I see their struggles, their fears, and their failures. I am not distant from their pain. I am the God who heals, who restores, who makes all things new. They are never alone. I am always with them." As his hand lifted, the brilliance of the light began to shift, and I could sense the experience was coming to an end. "Now, Sarah," he said with the gentlest urgency, "it is time for you to go back. Your work is not finished. Tell them I am coming soon." In an instant, everything changed. The vivid colors, the music, the overwhelming peace, all of it seemed to collapse inward as if being pulled through a pinhole of light. And then I felt it. A jolt, a pull, and a rush of sensation as I was brought back into my body. The first thing I noticed was the pain. My chest burned as if fire had been reignited within me. My lungs heaved, pulling in air with a desperation I'd never known before. I opened my eyes to the faces of paramedics hovering over me, their expressions a mixture of shock and relief. "She's back," one of them said, their voice trembling. "We've got her back." I could barely move, barely speak, but the tears streaming down my face weren't from pain. They were from the overwhelming gratitude I felt for what I'd just experienced. I wanted to tell them, to tell everyone, but the words wouldn't come. All I could do was grip the hand of one of the paramedics, trying to convey what I couldn't yet put into words. The days that followed were both physically and emotionally overwhelming. My recovery was nothing short of miraculous. Despite being hit by a car, my injuries were far less severe than anyone expected. The doctors were baffled, calling my survival and rapid healing incredible and unexplainable. But I knew the truth. During those early days of recovery, as I lay in a hospital bed, I replayed everything I had seen and heard. My Father's voice, Jesus' presence, the vision of the events to come, and with it came a deep, unshakable clarity. I had to share this, no matter how difficult or unbelievable it might seem. The transition back to normal life wasn't easy. I struggled with how to describe what had happened to those closest to me. How do you explain an experience so profoundly otherworldly to people who might not understand? Some listened with awe. Others looked at me with doubt. But I reminded myself of what Jesus had said. Some will doubt, some will mock, but those with ears to hear will understand and prepare,